How Show Calling Changes Based on the Production, a half-hour edition by Brian Runyon. In this half-hour edition, I'm discussing show calling and how the role of the show caller might change depending on the type of production you're working on, and what considerations need to be made in certain scenarios, and what expectations to have going into these scenarios. I've been thinking about how to approach writing this article for many months, and it will probably be an article that gets updated from time to time. If you have more information to add as a stage manager, please send me a message on LinkedIn. Before we dive into the specifics of show calling, let's lay the foundation by understanding what show calling is all about. At its core, show calling is the process of directing and orchestrating a live event. It incorporates collaborating with a team of other departments that are responsible for various aspects of the production and ensuring everything runs smoothly, according to a predetermined script. The script could be an actual script with lines people say, and sometimes a script can be a structure formed entirely on visual cues, and many times cues based on intuition. Translating, especially visual and intuitive cues, into writing can be the most difficult part of creating a calling script, but quickly transcribing what is happening on stage into a written format and executing them correctly, in my opinion, is what makes a great show caller. It becomes sort of a sixth sense. Ultimately, a show caller is responsible for communicating cues, instructions, and timing to the team during the event. This role requires exceptional organizational skills, clear communication, and a cool head under pressure. These skills must be easily done at both normal and high levels of stress when things sometimes go sideways. Let's discuss different types of show calling. When I think of live performance, I usually categorize it into either traditional or non-traditional. Traditional being straight theater-like plays and musicals, and non-traditional being everything that falls outside of that structure. However, the longer I work in live entertainment, the more I realize that most of it falls into that non-traditional category. As I begin to think about what makes live performances different from one another, and as a show caller, I started to think about differences that surface when working on different project styles. Project types and how the dynamics of the event change how you might approach putting a call script together. In my experience, theatrical rehearsal times are much longer than others due to the number of performances, while corporate events might only have one afternoon before the event for a rehearsal. Show callers might be involved in planning rehearsals and event prep. They might even be responsible for creating the schedules and coordinating with other departments. The experience level of the presenters and the team preparing the event could dramatically impact how well you can do your job when it comes to show calling. At times, access to the building might only be within a specific window for rehearsal time and for technical rehearsals. So preparing and getting the script under your belt might need to be done via a paper tech rehearsal where you only discuss what needs to happen. Much of the work might also be done before you arrive. Creating organized paperwork is important regardless of what kind of production you're calling, but sometimes printed paperwork will be used and sometimes digital is easier and quicker, especially when information is prone to change rapidly. Calling considerations for different project type scenarios. In corporate events, the use of DSMs or downstage monitors and teleprompters for the presenters is a common practice. Any changes to the script need to be communicated to the operators for these devices as well as calling them up at the correct times. A show caller wouldn't usually be responsible for cameras, but being aware of filming needs, how those are impacted, and how the live event portion impacts their work is something to be mindful of, especially when there could be live broadcasting where commercials are built into the programming. Timing could become very important. As you build your calling script, consider how these complex systems might communicate. Are they using timecode, MIDI, another communication system, and between more than one interface? It's not our job to know the intricacies, but being aware of them can help us as show callers. Calling differences depending on the type of show. Traditional. Plays and musicals based on a predetermined script used during a long rehearsal period of at least 3 weeks or more. Blocking notations are used to track where people move on stage so that the director can revisit scenes and what was done in previous rehearsals. Cues are often created on words and lines because they are defined markers for the starts and ends of scenes, although there are visual cues too. For example, when a character crosses the stage to pick up the phone or when the character turns the light switch on. Cues can also be taken off of the orchestra conductor in musicals for downbeats and buttons. Show callers are often responsible for calling all cues in a show outlined in a calling script. Opera is based on a musical score and is dictated entirely by the musical cues. There typically aren't spoken scripts because all of the words are sung in opera. Blocking notations, similar to theatrical productions, are used to track where people move on stage so that the director can revisit scenes. Entrance and exits are more important in opera as stage managers are often responsible for cueing singers on stage for their scenes. Calling scripts are usually made on the piano score, so it is easy to communicate start and stop points with the maestro during rehearsals. It is a common language for everyone to use. Show callers are responsible for calling all cues in a show like in traditional theater, but with the live orchestra. There is one less element of audio sound cues that are not present in opera. A caveat to calling cues is that the backstage managers are usually the ones responsible for cueing performers for entrances. Dance is based on physical movement, typically without a script. Most dance will have a structure and nomenclature that is defined by the choreographer and dancers. There might be a combination of elements with scripted parts and unscripted parts. Blocking notations are usually not a requirement for dance, as the choreographer has a solid understanding of the choreography and the specifics of the piece. Video is used regularly for dance rehearsals to review afterward. Calling scripts are typically created from scratch and in a format that works best for the show caller. I usually create the calling script in a Word document and notate the visual cues I'm looking at before and when the cue needs to happen. Show callers can be responsible for calling all cues in a show, and sometimes the lighting department will take all or part of their own cues depending on how much rehearsal was allotted and how complex the lighting design is. Corporate and live events are based on and driven by the goals of the client who is hosting the event, typically a one-time event. Sometimes there might be several scripts that need to be compiled into one. It might also consist of many forms of performance, including presenters, a dance piece, multimedia, music, etc. A traditional script usually will not exist, and a document will usually be created during pre-production called a show flow, which is an Excel document or spreadsheet matrix that outlines what each department needs to do for each moment of the show. Corporate events move quickly and with very little time on site. Because of this, much of the prep work is done prior to the event. Show callers are responsible for calling all cues in the show. These events move so quickly and change on a dime, so having one person orchestrate the event is crucial. Circus shows are usually created and established to maintain a long-running show in residence at one location or on tour moving around the world. Similar to dance, circus is often not based on a scripted material, but rather all physical. Circus is heavily involved with musical elements and also with a live band playing during the performance. Performers are often in the air on automated machinery, which heightens the level of attention to safety and awareness of what is happening on stage and in its periphery. Automation and special effects such as water effects, pyrotechnics, haze, and fog are always called by show callers for safety reasons and consistency. Other technical cues such as lighting, projections, video, and audio sound effects are often taken by the board operator rather than being called. Immersive theater is usually based on something specific such as a television show or a social phenomenon. Scripts may or may not be present in the process of creating an immersive event. Sometimes part of the event is scripted and other parts are not. Immersive events are designed to be repeated over and over and over and over again. Because of this fact, there usually aren't show callers who call cues but automated systems that are running the technical elements. As stage managers, we are paying closer attention to maintaining the event and being problem solvers when things start to not go according to plan. Communication as a show caller. Channel A, sometimes called show call, is the main channel for communication during a show. It's where cues are called and everyone is listening to the show caller call the cues. When something happens in a show that might pose a safety risk or something goes a little weird, departments communicate on Channel A so that the show caller can decide how to continue or not continue the show. Channel A can also be used for departments to give clears for certain automated moves so that the show caller knows that the performers or the scenery is safe to move. Channel B, sometimes called a private channel, is a channel dedicated to a specific group of people or a specific department. It cuts down the communication so you can communicate only about lighting, for example. Each department usually has its own private channel to communicate off of Channel A. Depending on the size of the production, you might have a radio, which is a great tool when you need to keep Channel A and Channel B clear. Most of the time, only the show crew has a comm with headsets to access Channel A and Channel B. So using radios allows access to people without comms. A great way to communicate quickly is with technology utilizing texting, WhatsApp, Teams, and other similar formats. Face-to-face communication can always be used to get information communicated and often is the best kind and with the least amount of translation and least occurrence of misunderstanding important information. Show calling is an art that brings live events to life, from the stage to the screen. Whether it's the drama of a theatrical performance, the energy of a live concert, or the excitement of a sports event, show callers play a pivotal role in ensuring that everything runs like clockwork. It is the backbone of any live event, ensuring seamless coordination and execution. Understanding the different types of show calling and the techniques involved is essential for anyone aspiring to excel in this field. It's a profession that demands a unique blend of skills from technical know-how to clear communication and quick thinking. You've been listening to How Show Calling Changes Based on the Production, a half-hour edition by Brian Runyon. Thanks for listening.